Okay, so let's go through these instructions. First things first, in Photoshop, we need to make sure that our window is set to the workspace for painting, so that we have all the painting presets pulled up. And what you should have in this palette is a paintbrush and 4 tubes of paint. So first things we're going to do, select the color by going over to the eyedropper here, and we'll select the color from the red tube of paint. Then the brush we want to use down here on the sidebar is this one that is called the Mixer Brush Tool. From there we can either go to Window, Brush Settings, or alternatively the same thing will appear if you click here, right, Brush Settings. We want to select this first brush in our brush panel. That's just a soft round 30 pixel brush. Go ahead and click on that guy. It should just be the default brush. From there, we're going to just go in and experiment with the way that wetness works in Photoshop brushes. Depending on whether or not you have your brush set to be moist or dry, depends on whether or not it will mix colors. So one second, let me get this Schoology thing out of the way so I can make my Photoshop a little bit bigger. In the options bar, we're going to choose dry. So right now it's at moist. I'm going to go up to dry. And notice when I paint with a dry brush, it's just red paint that comes out, right? Nothing blended, just... it's up here at the top, like where your font would be. It's the drop down just beside that. So we want it to go to dry. Yep. And by default, that means your wetness gets set to 0, your load gets set to 50. These are sort of like presets for how much moisture is in your paintbrush. And notice that if you scribble, it just kind of paints, right? And as you paint without releasing the mouse, the paint will eventually, fade and run out. So, yay. Okay. Now, with the eyedropper tool, we're also going to go in and grab the blue. That's our next one. Well, before I do that, notice that if I paint with this, at some point, it runs out of paint. Because the mixer brush is supposed to act like a paintbrush, right? Just like if you had a paintbrush in art class, at a certain point you run out of paint in your brush. It's supposed to emulate that. You can also reduce the amount of paint on your brush by turning the load down. So right, I can basically say how much paint I want to be on my brush using load. Right? If you're trying to make it look like you're in art class and you have a really dry paintbrush, use less load. Notice it just kind of gives you these sort of nice fadey lines. Okay, that's how wetness and load work when we have it set to dry. The next one we're going to do is go in and mess around with blue. Right, again, eyedropper to select the color. You can also select the color by clicking on the color up here and then picking where you want to take from on your drawing. Right, the next thing we're going to do is go and choose the brush setting called Round Sketch Ballpoint Pen. So if we again go into our brush settings, we want to grab this first one in the second row. If we hover over it, it'll say Round Sketch Ballpoint Pen. Cool. And we're going to paint with the blue tube. Let's make sure, is it set to dry still? We'll find out. No, I don't think we're supposed to still have it set to dry. Oh, yeah. So notice it's painting and we've got some. It wanted us to do wet first. So first things first, paint with wet. Notice when you have your brush set really wet, it blends a ton with the white color below. Right? So again, that's sort of what happens when your brush is set too wet. But if you set it too dry, using the same brush, you get nice hard colors, right? So that's sort of the point in messing about with the moisture there. The next one we're going to do is go in and grab the color from the yellow here. And they want us to grab the pencil brush, which again is here. If it says that pencil is the fourth brush in the second row. Fourth brush, second row. Fourth brush, second row, okay. There's the pencil. And they want us to set that to be dry. Okay, we're dry. Notice that just gives us a nice hard line, but again, just like everything else, it fades out based on how much load you have. So at some point you run out of lead in your pencil, I guess. Now it says go in and try to see what happens when you put this up to very wet. And notice just how much streaking you can get. You can even go in and smear your old yellow. All these different brushes with all their different effects. Okay, last one, green. We're gonna choose hard round brush, which is the sixth brush in the fifth row. I wanna go down to my brush settings. Sixth brush, row 5. A yellow is pencil. I think that's the second or fourth one in the second row. And this last one we want to use hard round, which is this guy right here. Hard round, soft round, hard round. Okay. My rows were a little funky, so maybe didn't grab the right one. And we want to choose dry from the menu options. And we're going to just dry zigzag. Right. Notice that the hard paintbrush gives you the nice crisp edges. That's what brush hardness is. Imagine if you were painting with a marker instead of a paintbrush. It's going to be harder. Okay, and this is now getting into the area where we learn how these brushes can be used just like in art class. Right, so we're going to go in and add a new layer. And we're going to name this layer Paint Mix. Right, and with this Paint Mix layer, what we want to do is use the eyedropper again, go down and grab the red paint tube, and then we're going to choose soft round from our brushes. I guess we have to have the brush tool selected for soft round. Should be the first one. Yeah. And we're going to make that be a wet, soft round. There we go. And we also want to click this button here. Well, mine was already deselected, but we want to make sure you deselect this thing up here called Clean the Brush After Each Stroke. Now, the thing is, if you uncheck that, just like a paintbrush, imagine that you're painting and you're dipping your brush in water to clean the ink off, right? This, you can either do that, or if you uncheck this, it's like you're using the same dirty paintbrush to do all your painting. Sometimes that's desirable. Right, you want to blend colors. You're not going to keep cleaning your brush over and over again. So I'm going to paint with, this wet brush without the cleaning turned on. I'm just going to fill in this circle. Okay, first step done. Now, I got to do the same thing. I got to go down here, grab the blue off the blue tube, and I'm going to mix that using the same brush until these two things become purple, just like in art class. So, you can just sort of mix around and notice that the two colors blend together. That's why it's called the mixer brush. Now, if you go crazy, eventually it's all just going to become blue because you just put so much blue ink in there that there's no longer purple. But after a while, you'll get sort of a nice purple blend there. But the beauty of this is once you get a color you like, you can go in and grab the eyedropper and, paint with that newly created purple color you just made. And we know the key commands, Command plus, lets us just fill that in. Command, okay. Yeah, just make sure it's on a new layer called wet brush and you unchecked clean the brush after each stroke. It's right up by wet there. It's off to the left of wet. Okay, after we've made purple, we're going to go up to the options bar and choose Clean Brush from the current brush load pop-up menu. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So if we click on the color, we can just go and click Clean Brush. And notice what happens is all the color that was loaded in, maybe from, different actions, is now gone. It just kind of cleans out. There's nothing there. Cool? So, now that there's nothing in there, what's up? I'll come over in a second. Let me just get through that, and then we'll have a good clean recording, and then I can come help you. So, after we've got that, right, we're going to go in and click this. We can go down and sample our yellow. And they want us to, well, I guess they want us to do blue first. We can go down and grab blue. We can paint half the circle in with blue. And then we can go in and grab the mixer brush and grab yellow and paint the other half of the circle yellow. And if we clean the brush here, we don't even have to have any paint in our brush. We can just mix those two things together. So notice how our color selected is transparent, but by drawing over these existing colors, we can blend them. Almost like if you had a wet paintbrush and you were just kind of stirring ink around, right? So, not the prettiest color. It's kind of a murky yellow, but, concept is there. Okay. The last step here is just to make orange, and it doesn't give you any instructions, but, the idea is the same. We'll go in and we'll grab, right, yellow. What color do we need to mix with yellow to make orange? Red. Okay, good. Our class was a W. Alright, let's go in and grab that red. Now, there's a million ways to do this, but you can just, with a wet brush, come in there, play around. Maybe if you want it to be more mixed, you can say wet, light mix. And now it's sort of a lighter orange. Or you can always just put a small amount of red in there, then you can clean your brush, and then just mix until you get the shade of orange you want. Just like if you're mixing paint in real life. And that, folks, is the basics of the mixer brush. I'm going to save this recording and then help you on the next one.